When you start shading, the first thing you need to learn is how to do an even layer of shade. Now, as you grow more and more expert and you grow more and more accustomed to shading, you will get bolder with your lines. For example, if you're going to shade an area like this, when you become an expert, you will become more bolder and your lines will be more continuous and full. But when you are just starting off, you need to have that control to get an even layer of pencil tone or a pen tone. Now here I am working with a ballpoint pen, so the darkness, the depth of my line is going to be constant regardless of how much pressure I am putting on it. But when you're working with a pencil, you can vary the depth by putting less pressure or more pressure. Now, the first thing you need to learn is how to make an even tone. For that, now remember, this is all about patience. This has got nothing to do with your skills. This has got nothing to do with your talent. This is all about patience. So when you start off, you need to start off with small strokes. Now, as you can see here, if I show you closely, now you see these areas where the overlap of the pencil strokes is happening. So that will always leave a dark patch. Now I am joining small strokes there. Wherever this overlap is going to happen, it's going to leave a dark patch. To avoid that, what we do is we make irregular shape lines. So I will try and shift this line and not make like a regular border there. So in that case, when I try and extend these, I will not get such pronounced overlap lines. Yeah? You can see that the overlaps are still going to be there, but it's not as pronounced because they're not in one line as before. So now this is your first task. Your first task is to take a rectangle and divide it into 3. Now why I'm dividing it into 3 is this is going to be our next task, where we are going to do overlaps of layers and make it darker. So first layer, you need to cover this. No. So if I was shading, this would be my first basic tone. Now if you see here, the lines I drew first are still visible under the shading. That's because pencil or pen, whatever we are using, this is a transparent medium, means you can see the lines underneath. Now when we are doing pencil shading, we take advantage of this property and we do shading in layers. This is a new technique, and this technique is mostly followed by trained artists. So people who have self-taught themselves or have not gone to a proper art school, they will not follow the technique I am going to show you. But it's a change in basic approach, so it takes time to adapt. But once you adapt it, it makes your work very, 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 very easy. But we will get there later. Let me show you the basic technique of pencil shading. So this is my first tone, this will be my second tone, and this will be my third tone. Now the second tone is going to come on top of the first tone, and I'm going to make lines in a different directions. So second tone is a combination of the darkness of the first tone and the second tone, and as a result it turns out much darker than the first tone. As you can see, the second tone lines I'm making in a different direction. This is called cross hatching, and this technique is used when you are using a pen or a crockwell or a sketch pen or something like that. In pencil you can use the same direction, because pencil, the lines, it can become progressively darker even if you make one line on top of the other. But in pen, because of the depth of the pen, the depth of the line is constant, we have to always do this cross hatching. So now, as you can see, this is my second tone, and it is a combination of two first tones. Like, it's in layers. You can see the first tone under the second tone, and that's what makes it darker. Now I'm going to make the third tone, and I'm going to use a different direction of line here. So you can see here, first tone, second tone, and third tone. Now remember, when you are making these lines, you will have a tendency of the pen going back and forth like this. But what happens when you do that is you will get an even more darker overlap here in the ends, and also you don't get, you can see here, you get a really dark overlap, and also you don't get to spread out your lines, and you have very little control over the tones. So try to make sure that you lift up your pen at the end of every stroke and start from the top again. So I think it's a good practice to begin with. As you become more and more expert, maybe you can look at the option of taking your pen back and forth, where you have more control over the pressure and the ending of the stroke. Okay, so that's your exercise for today.